Cucumbers? What do you want to grow them for? Now cucumbers are a great crop. They're a bit of a novelty crop. They look great when people come round and you've got vines of nice, crisp, succulent cucumbers hanging there. If you're going to harvest your own cucumbers, a little tip, because this is where I was going wrong, try and cut them off in the morning. Because I like to show off a little bit with the garden. People come around and I like to lay the table and do the Greek cooking and all that, and then I like to cut the cucumbers and things like that in front of people, so it's just all a part of the sort of, you know, process of you know, growing food and cooking with it. But with cucumbers, you've got to harvest them in the morning when they're crisp. Now, what I found with cucumbers is you just got to get the fundamentals right. You know, get the right amount of sunlight, the right amount of heat, right amount of moisture, and you won't go wrong. Now, the two times I just want to tell you about that I grew cucumbers and had the most success. The first one I grew them outside. Now, bear in mind that was when I lived in London, and I was on a south-facing garden next to a wall on a bit of decking, and there were these raised compost planters in the decking. Because I've never managed to grow cucumbers again. Now I'm a little bit further out of London, and it was a particularly warm year that year. So basically the point I'm trying to make here is if you live in temperate climates in the UK, to be safe, grow them in a polytunnel. But you don't have to, you know, that's just my advice, because where I am here there's a little bit of elevation. I'm outside of London on a hill, and you know, I've found that, you know, the crops don't do so well, especially that bit where you're trying to introduce them outside. So I grow them in the polytunnel. Now, I now like to grow the long ones, the long crispy sort of ones you get in the shop. I was growing the pickling cucumbers, but one year I grew them in the greenhouse and I vowed never to do it again, because they are so prolific, and I ended up with such a glut, and I pickled loads of them. But you know what? By the time I got to winter, I was so sick of pickled cucumbers, I don't think I'll ever eat a pickled gherkin ever again. So I'm going for the long, sort of crispy ones. Now, what I've done is I have sown them in pots. These are in the polytunnel, but I've also got a few more which are a little bit more further along. To be fair, they've got a little bit popped down. So this is the little cucumber plant. Just to show you something here, so basically what you've got there is the female flower. The female flower's got this little sort of cucumber there. If you can just see that, it's got the little cucumber. So the female flower, and the male flower hasn't got the little cucumber behind it. What can happen if you've got a polytunnel that gets too hot, you can end up with a situation where the pollen gets so hot and moist and humid it gets sticky, and you know, you can find these little fellas falling off. But generally with cucumbers, they're quite prolific. They smell good as well. So what I do is I plant these on the north facing side of your greenhouse. If you plant them on the south facing side, what you'll end up with is a mass of foliage, and it will just block the sunlight out. Now, I've seen other bloggers and people saying they need full sun. But I found as long as they've got the warmth, they'll tolerate a bit of shade, as long as they've got the warmth and a bit of moisture. Having said that, if it gets too moist, you can end up with problems. You don't want to damage the stems of these when they're young. You'll find they'll just get mildew and things, and they'll just flop. And you get that powdery mildew, and it's a pain in the backside. You also get the red spider mite. I always say, you know, try and get a bit of ecological control if it's in the greenhouse as well. A few little log poles, things like that. Spiders should be able to keep them sort of things under control. But generally, I don't really have a problem with cucumbers. They all seem to do very well. So I always use a rich compost for them. You know, a really common thing is to go into the garden centre, get a bit carried away, and you know what? It's a blimmin' rip-off, and it makes me angry, because you walk into the garden centre in April, May time, and they got these tiny little seedlings. They're like £2 each. They charge you now. £2. Can you imagine? Right. So I've got one packet. Look how many I've got there, and they're 4 times as strong. Now I shouldn't even really be growing these like this. I should be doing these in singular pots. But look how robust, and the slugs have had a nibble at them, but they're still robust. So sow your own cucumbers. They're not difficult. Dedicate your little window ledge to it or something like that. And if you haven't got a polytunnel to put them back into, then get a little bit of plastic, just something to take the edge off that sort of May weather, because it can be a bit unpredictable. And what I've found in May, I've lost loads of things like cucumbers in May. You get the hail. It might not frost, but when you get a hailstorm, that'll annihilate everything, and that always happens. I don't think I've remembered a May or any time like that where the hail hasn't destroyed things. So you've got to be a little bit careful of that as well. So really, when it comes to soil, just keep it moisture retentive, not boggy, high nitrogen. It likes high nitrogen soil. Does the old cucumbers. Try and give them a bit of light, and if you are going to grow them in a polytunnel, try and make sure it's well circulated, the air, well ventilated, and it's not too groggy in there. And just be aware, if you grow them on nets up the side, which is a good option, try and keep them to the north, because they do shade out and they will dominate. I was amazed the first year I grew them in a polytunnel. I couldn't believe it. It was almost like having a weed in the polytunnel. So just a few things for you to think of there. And remember, if you're going to harvest them early morning when they're nice, cool and crisp, there you have it. Growing your own cucumbers. Not a lot to grow in them. Get the situation right, you'll be a-okay. Get out there and grow some. If you like the videos, feel free to like and subscribe. I'll catch you next time.